Hey everybody, this is John with Proficient Mower. Again, I work as Briggs fan also on justanswer.com. In the last video, we pulled the carburetor off of a Husqvarna235 chainsaw. I showed everybody how to pretty much go ahead and dismantle the chainsaw and everything, what to take off and how to get the carburetor off. This video, we're going to open the carburetor up, check the gaskets, clean the carburetor, and see if it actually needs to be rebuilt, or could it just be, needs a fuel screen replaced or whatever. The last video also, we identified the carb as a Zama. It's a Zama C1T. After shutting the video off, I realized that this carburetor also has the markings of the other numbers you need, so I wanted to show that to you guys too. Right on the top here, if you can see, are the other numbers of what it needs to identify that carb. So it's a Zama C1T W33C. You can see the W33C there. You can also see the 03A. So it's going to be one of those two. So anytime you pull one of these carburetors off, you're going to look for the name. It'll be a Zama or a Walbro. And right underneath it, it says C1T. And then you'll flip it over to this side over here. And over here is where they will have the other numbers. And that'll give you the information that you need as far as ordering your rebuild kit and everything if we have to rebuild it. So that's just for you guys to know in case you end up having to pull one of these off and you're doing some work and you can't find out what type it is. We're going to start with dismantling this and taking it apart, and we'll go through that, and I will show you guys pretty much what needs to be, dismantled and taken apart. Okay, so I'm trying to get a good angle on the camera where you guys can kind of see what's going on still. Okay, so you got your 4 Phillips here. You're going to use the small Phillips. These screws also, you can use a straight. You're going to remove those 4 first. So I'm going to go ahead. I have a small Phillips here. You'll take each one of these off. Just lightly undo them. And I keep a container right over here that I put all my parts in. That way, whatever job I'm working on, I don't lose the parts, because my shop is a total mess all the time. I always say I'm going to get to cleaning it up. It just doesn't ever seem to happen. So you want to undo that one. Undo this one. Undo this one. And undo this one. Okay, then this little plate will come off, and it's got a spacer with it too, so be careful. That's your pumper diaphragm. Right now it's hard to tell if it's brittle or not. We're going to pull it off. It feels a tad bit brittle. It's got a little bit of movement to it, but that's your spacer too. You're going to have to undo that screw right there to pull the rest of this off. So you'll set this diaphragm aside. Yeah, the way that thing's just kind of clicking, that tells us that diaphragm is worn. So you'll go ahead now and undo. You'll go ahead now and undo this screw here.
Daddy,
yeah, buddy.
we're leaving.
Alright, buddy, have fun at the park.
We're going to this park.
Alright. So you'll undo this screw here as well. That'll get your spacer off. And so you put that screw in there. That'll pop your spacer off. This is your other sets of gaskets. If these are blocked up, you see that white on there? That's gummed up fuel and stuff. See how it's coming off, touching it? looks like it has a little bit of bad gas buildup. That is your screen. Do you see that right there? That's probably 90% of your problem right here. This thing is loaded with junk. I'm hoping that this is getting a good shot. Let me turn because the display turns off. Look at that screen. Do you see all that in there? Okay, all that is sawdust and stuff. That's what honestly will stop the carb from getting the fuel when it's priming and stuff, and stop it from running. There's a lot of stuff in there. So these screens are usually replaceable, but you can see this stuff coming off. You can just scrape it around a little bit. Yeah, these screens on most of these are just pressed in. So that screen's going to come out. But that just shows you, even though the carb looks clean, you won't really know until you get inside of it. So you just pull that. See how the screen popped out? It's open. There's a passageway in there. Most likely, fuel wasn't getting through that because you had a buildup of sawdust. So you take that off, set that down. We're going to clean that up as well. Okay, on the other side, with this carburetor, there's not much else to take apart. It's pretty simple. So you can undo this small Phillips here will undo your needle, the pin, and the holder. And under that is a spring. You don't want to lose that spring. So what we'll do is we will now go ahead and undo that very carefully. Again, you're going to need a small Phillips. Get it right in your... And sometimes these might be a little too big and you might actually need a smaller Phillips. If that's the case, then you're going to have to get a tiny Phillips for it. Some of them have a straight slot. This one does. See how the straight fits in there? Okay, you undo that. Hold your thumb over that needle and over that spring. Because if you don't, when you let off this thing here, when that screw comes out, that spring and everything is going to go flying in the air. So you hold it like that, it can't. There is a spring underneath it. Now gently let it up. You can pick it up and you can see that spring? You don't want to lose that, or your float pin or anything else. Put all that in your container. Dump all that, make sure it's clear. Okay. So, that, on an older style, you'd be able to look through there and see through the fuel screen, but because they're making these carburetors different, that's pretty much the extent of what you're going to do. You do have the high and low passages. I like to remove them. Don't lose track of which needles go where. I'm going to go ahead and grab a special screwdriver that removes them. They have different heads on each type. That way the general homeowner can't tamper with them. But I always, being that we do repairs and everything, I like to remove them before I put it in a dip tank. Okay, got my kit here. This is a bunch of different specialty small engine, screwdriver tools and stuff. These will undo these where you can't with the other ones. So you just got to find and line it up. Okay, when you look at these, one will be low, one will be high. This one says H, that's your high port. So you get this in there and you turn it. And like I said, it is a specialty screwdriver. You can get it, it's a carb adjustment tool. You can get these on eBay. I've had them for years. I got them for a couple different types of carbs. But what that'll do is, that allows me to pull that jet needle out. One thing you never want to do with these is when you put them back in, you never want to go ahead and over tighten them. Because if you do, this is an aluminum body carburetor, it will strip them. When it strips them, that's it. It won't, they won't ever adjust correctly again. So that's about a half turn in. So what we'll do now is back it out. So we know that one is only about a half turn. Back it out. And we're pulling the low out now. And you want to keep them separate because these needles are different in length. And they're different all the way around too. So I mean, if you accidentally put the low in the high, or the high in the low being a bigger port, what it'll do is it'll remount that. See how long that one is compared? So that's your low. Right there you can see the L. Okay, so we'll separate that, move that over to here. Now, this carburetor is ready to go in what I call a dip tank. I always love using these. I've had one for years now, because you can spray it out and put it back together, but there's no guarantee that it's going to fix it. So what I have here is, come on, you're coming with me for a minute, is an ultrasonic cleaner. This is meant for jewelry. Harbor Freight sells them for about 50 bucks. They're really good. This water gets pretty hot. When that red button's on, it's hot. I like to throw these in for a few cycles. Basically, it's going to flush everything out so I don't have to pull the Welch plug, which is that line right there. I can pull it if need be, but usually when you boil them with the ports out like this, with the high and low screws out, that ultrasonic vibration of hot water will clear out all these ports in this carburetor that you can't get to. So we'll set it in like that, set up our time, and then we're going to go ahead and boil it. Once we do that, I will end up spraying the carburetor out, replacing the fuel screen. We're going to check those gaskets. If we think the gaskets are okay, we might be okay with putting it back on and getting it going. If the gaskets aren't okay, then you're going to have to order a rebuild kit. But this is just showing you like basically the fundamentals of breaking down the carburetor, cleaning it, what to look for. As you saw in the video, we had a lot of sawdust buildup on that fuel screen, and that is a lot of times the problem with chainsaws. That dust is so fine, it gets past the air filter and everything, it gets into the actual carb, and then between the gas going through that screen and and then you have, you know, fuel which is wet, it just makes that sawdust almost like a muck, and it'll build it up and block things up in this carburetor. So on the next video we shoot, I'm going to go ahead and we will start reassembling on the carb, and then we'll shoot another video after that, putting it all back together and testing it. But for right now, there's no point in keeping you guys hanging for 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I might do this. A lot of times I'll run these things through 2 to 3 cycles. So we're going to shut this video off. Again, this is John with Proficient Mower. Also Briggs fan on JustAnswer.com. And our next video, after we boil this thing, we'll shoot the video basically on reassembly, how to check and level the needle on the carburetor, and also how to reassemble the saw, and we'll test it. Alright, see you next time.